That saves money compared to the current system. It doesn't cost anything. It's literally less expensive than what we have now. So
no, when you move 170
into
Austin,
being extreme,
when you move 170 million people off of their private insurance, which is way too far to the right. Sebastian, how do you see this moving forward? I mean, Democrats have painted into their corner. They have painted themselves as socialists.
The former director of the CBO, the independent, but completely neutral CBO, crunched the numbers last week. I discussed it on my show. Every single American will have to fund the Green New Deal to the cost of $300,000 per person who's alive in America. Those are the figures. And every single person who is an official candidate for the presidency in the Democrats has signed on to Ocasio's deal. This is the insanity. Your guest, Charlie, is absolutely right. Socialism is controlling every aspect of your life. If they control your health care, they've got everything. If they want to control what you are eating, that is totalitarianism. And she said it. Look, Ocasio said it. We've got to stop eating cheeseburgers. It's insanity, Jason. Insanity.
Charlie, how do you see younger people? I mean, younger people are more idealistic. They don't have as much life experience. But is this a winning message with, somebody who's in their 20s and, hey, it sounds great, everything for free?
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that there is some allure to it. Everybody likes free stuff. Everybody likes the cheapest thing that they can get. The problem is that we've done a poor job of reminding them. Ever since the Soviet Union fell, we do a poor job of reminding people just how terrible a way of life that is. And we have a perfect example in Venezuela right now. Everybody should see it and watch it. But we have to do a better job of illustrating just how terrifying and dangerous this is. And Austin, I'm so glad you're against socialism, but I wish that your party would have a CPAC and you could take all the people that are running for president and go and talk to them and explain to them how terrible socialism is, because it's really, really frightening, and it's very disheartening to see in this day and age a party where an alarming number of its leaders, or at least the people that are seeking to lead the party, have fully embraced the concept of it.
And I want to give Austin and Sebastian, I've got just 10 seconds for each. Where is this going? The Democrats candidates for president are going further and further to the left, are they not?
They're not going to socialism, and I just caution you guys to be careful, because you're trumping it up like it's going to be the biggest socialist takeover ever. And when people see what it actually is, they're going to say, that doesn't seem so bad. And then you guys are going to seem like you're out to lunch.
Well, somebody is actually reading the text of the bill, and I got to tell you, that is the direction that it is going. Sebastian.
We'll all be out to lunch if they ban cheeseburgers, steak, and everything you want to eat. Bernie Sanders, I played the audio on my show today. Bernie Sanders was asked, does the Green New Deal go far enough? And Bernie said, it doesn't go far enough. The lunatics have taken over the asylum, Jason.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you all being here tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And we're going to go through this the rest of the show. Without a doubt, one of the loudest voices pushing the Democratic Party further and further left is Socialist Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. According to a report from the Washington Post, she and other radical Democrat lawmakers said they are lashing out now at their more moderate colleagues. Ocasio-Cortez even vowed to put anyone who voices with Republicans on a list to be primaried in the next election. But somebody might want to remind the Socialist Congresswoman about this vote that you see on your screen. A few weeks ago, she was the only Democrat to vote with Republicans on roll call vote 46. That's right. She was the only one, and she joined the Republicans, and under her definition, she should be on this list. And I look forward to seeing who she recruits to primary herself. Ocasio-Cortez is not the only person feuding inside the Democratic Party. Fellow socialist Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are at odds once again, after a former Clinton aide referred to Sanders as, quote, His Royal Majesty, King Bernie Sanders, end quote. A former Sanders campaign aide called the Clinton camp, on the record, by the way, some of the biggest a-holes in American politics, end quote. Joining us now is Fox News contributor Lawrence Jones and Republican strategist Brad Blakeman. Thank you both for being here. Lawrence, I believe you're at CPAC. You got some noise in the background. It's exciting. I know what's going on there. But Brad, you know, the Tea Party had to deal with these issues, right? I feel like I was on the front end of the Tea Party. I was a much more conservative member than a lot of others. And then there was a battle a bit internally. But the Democrats are going through this now. How do you see it playing out?
I think they have an identity crisis. They're in meltdown. I remember a time not too long ago where if you called a Democrat a socialist publicly, you were slandering them. Now they get angry if you don't call them that, and they're out trying to out-left each other. And the party is in complete identity crisis. The way I see it playing out is this is going to continue right up through the primaries. The American people are going to see a stark contrast, probably different than any other campaign that we've ever experienced, the difference between what the Republicans stand for and what the Democrats stand for. And I don't think the people are going to buy socialist.
Now, Lawrence, what are the Democrats going to do? You know, when you have a more moderate Democrat who believes what the Republicans are saying, let's say they offer an amendment that says, look, if an illegal alien is trying to purchase a gun and you're going to do a background check and you find out that they're illegal, we should tell ICE about it. I mean, I think it's radical to not tell ICE, but some Democrats actually join Republicans in that vote. How are they going to deal with that internally?
They're going to tear them apart. I mean, let's be honest here. We have a Democratic Party that's unhinged. They believe that socialism is the new way. Any type of reasonable legislation that a typical Democrat back in the day would typically support, like border security, will get them crossed out from winning a primary. That's why, although I think Joe Biden is one of the main candidates in the mainstream, I'm afraid that the old Joe Biden is going to go cuckoo because the Democratic Party is going to pressure him to go so far to the left. And I think, you know, that may work for a primary, but when you're talking about a swing district, and I mean those districts that voted for then Barack Obama and then voted for President Donald Trump, that type of socialism nonsense is not going to work in those districts. And so what the Democrats have to do is be more pragmatic and think about what issues are in the mainstream. And I'm sorry, when it comes to border security, that's in the mainstream. Many people across in those flyover states, those swing districts, want border security. They may not agree with all elements of Trump, but the basic stuff of a border wall, I think they agree with it.
Now, Brad, that's true. I mean, I have never seen a party thrive nationally by being anti-law enforcement. I mean, you got a lot of people out there that want to abolish ICE. They want open borders. They don't want to not only give more border wall, they want to tear down the existing wall. How can the Democrats thrive with a socialist agenda that includes an open borders agenda?
They cannot, and that's going to be their downfall, is the fact that they'll swing so far left in the primaries, they can't come back to the middle in a general. They couldn't even attempt it. But here's the bottom line. I think the American people are where the country is, and that's just right of center. We're not a left country. And as Charlie pointed out earlier, that all you look to is what's happening in Venezuela. It's a total dictatorial regime that is even preventing humanitarian aid from reaching the people. And where are the Democrats, by the way? They claim to be for the working man. Where are they on calling Maduro out for what he is? They can't do it. You know why? It's because it blows a hole in their socialist agenda when they have to admit that a socialist state is in total chaos. So I think if Republicans stay to where the American people are on the economy, on safety, on national security, we will win. Why? Because we're right.
No, and as Lawrence pointed out, you got Joe Biden who had to go out and apologize for calling Mike Pence a decent person, which he is. We have a Fox News alert we need to go to. Brad, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
This is a Fox News alert. Last week, we first showed you this shocking video of a young Trump supporter getting brutally assaulted on the campus of UC Berkeley, reportedly because of his political beliefs. Tonight, we can report that that individual responsible for that assault has finally been arrested. 28-year-old Zachary Greenberg was booked earlier this afternoon. Back with us for more on this development is Lawrence Jones. Lawrence, you're the editor-in-chief of Campus Reform, who originally broke this story. What have you learned about the arrest that happened today?
Yeah, so we've been following this from the very beginning. At first, we heard from sources that said that they were seeking a warrant after the suspect refused to turn himself in after telling police that he was going to turn himself in. What we know now is that he used to be a university employee, worked in a lab, and he was also a distant learning student as well. This is a student that wasn't seeking a degree there, but got some type of education there at the university. What we don't know is why he was on the campus at the time. The police department has told us off the record that, on the record, I'm sorry, that a lot of people in that area go on and off through the campus because it's downtown area, but they don't know why he was there. What we do know also is that they plan on having a hearing on Monday to discuss what the bond is. That's where he'll see the judge, but we still don't know why his ultimate reason for attacking Hayden.
Well, you have a young person engaging in politics. We need more of that. They're out on campus. They're in the minority. They want to get out and talk to people about being engaged in politics, albeit conservative in this particular case. But nobody should be assaulted like that. I'm glad to see him arrested. And thanks to your organization for illuminating the case in the first place. I'm sure that's why it got the attention that it deserved from law enforcement. Thank you again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
Later on this Hannity special, Socialism Rising, as Sean Hannity promised in last night's show, we'll play a clip of Sean asking President Trump a question at his press conference in Hanoi, Vietnam. We're going to want to see the president's response. Don't miss that directly ahead. A very real socialist threat. We'll show you what disasters it's been in other countries. Do the Democrats care? No. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, Socialism Rising. Radical Democrats on the left are pushing their socialist agenda on the American people, all while the failed socialist state of Venezuela continues to collapse. This week, Univision anchor Jorge Ramos, who was detained in Venezuela, told Sean what he saw when covering the chaos in Venezuela. Have a look.
What I saw in Venezuela is that the 20-year-old revolution, it started with Hugo Chavez in 1999, has failed completely. You have more than 3 million Venezuelans living in the country. Inflation is 1,000,000%. If they pay 1 bolivar today, it'll be 1,000,000 bolivars in a year from now. And people are dying. I went to a hospital, Hospital Vargas, and then one woman, she had lost a family member. And you know why? Because they didn't have $30 to pay for antibiotics. So the experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
And while Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro is detaining journalists, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says she does not recognize the opposition leader as the rightful interim president of Venezuela. Listen to this.
We are threatening intervention. We're sending humanitarian aid that is in the guise of, eventually invading this country. And the people of the country do not want us there.
Like your fellow Democrats and like the US government does and the Canadian government does, you don't support the leader of the opposition as being the president right now, not
Absolutely
President Maduro.
Not.
Wow. But she isn't the only one on the left defending Maduro. On Monday, Bernie Sanders explained why he wouldn't call Maduro a dictator.
Why have you stopped short of calling Maduro of Venezuela a dictator?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the last election was undemocratic, but there are still democratic operations taking place in that country. The point is, what I am calling for right now is internationally supervised free elections.
That's the same Bernie Sanders who back in 1985 praised Fidel Castro. And get this, after visiting socialist Nicaragua, said people lining up for food was a good thing. You can't make this up.
It's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing. In other countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food and the poor starve to death.
Joining us now with reaction is Relatable podcast host Ali Stuckey, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, and host of the Buck Sexton Show, Buck Sexton. Thank you, all three of you, for being here this evening. Ali, I want to start with you. When you see what's going on in Venezuela and you hear what some of those Democrats are saying about what's happening, what do you see? What's really going on there?
Well, Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders are apparently perfectly fine with dictatorial, totalitarian regimes as long as the word socialism is by their name. There used to be a talking point from the left that would say, you know, it's not socialism what we're seeing in Venezuela, it's statism, which of course is not true. But now we're seeing that they're not exactly saying that. It's really hard to deny that it's socialism that's happening in Venezuela. And so they're saying, well, it's not really a dictatorship. It's not really our role to step in. You actually heard Ilhan Omar maybe say that we shouldn't even be sending foreign aid, which is pretty crazy to hear from someone who claims that President Trump is a dictator. And so there's all kinds of irony and hypocrisy coming from the left.
Buck, what do you see happening in Venezuela, and how do you respond to what the Democrats are saying?
Well, I think that what you see are Democrats on the far left of the party, which increasingly leads the Democratic Party, we all see that, trying to come up with some way to, if not defend Maduro outright, to at least put up some kind of a smokescreen for what's going on there. And look, I think that the reporting by Jorge Ramos and others showing what's going on there is absolutely essential. The country couldn't be in much worse shape than it currently is. And so what you have from the left is, well, this shouldn't be a military intervention. No one is talking about a military intervention. We're talking about humanitarian aid and diplomatic relations and having a new election. So I think this is just nonsense from Sanders and Ilhan Omar and others who quite honestly have a fondness built in for socialists. And that's what we're seeing.
Sarah, what do you see in Venezuela? I mean, Maduro, Bernie Sanders' position on that, not calling him a dictator. How do you read what's happening?
Oh, Jason, it's desperation on Bernie Sanders' part. I mean, here he is propagating socialism in the United States. I'm going to have to agree with Buck on this. He's propagating it. He's holding it up high. Ilhan Omar. We've seen it with AOC as well. And they're trying to push young people to believe that this is a system that will work. This is a system that has proven throughout history to collapse on itself. What we're seeing in Venezuela is such a tragedy, a humanitarian disaster. I mean, Jorge Ramos, I mean, he's covered this area. I've been watching Jorge Ramos my whole life. I speak Spanish fluently. What he is seeing, he is right. It's 20 years of a failed system totally collapsing on itself, children starving to death, eating out of garbage cans. This is what Maduro couldn't handle. So when Jorge Ramos showed him this video and he had to see for himself what he's doing to his own people, I mean, it set him off so much that he, he jailed them. Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, AOC, all of the people that propagate on the left for socialism are just trying to cover up. This is desperation by not calling a spade, and they want us to believe that there's something else going on here.
Ali, why are the major Democratic candidates continue to go further and further left? It's only March 1st of 2019. So why the embracing of socialism?
Because I think they saw that it worked with Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders, for lack of a better term, is really the OG Democratic socialist, and he got more votes from millennials than Trump or Clinton did combined. And so you see a lot of people saying, okay, that worked for him. For whatever reason, these postmodern millennials who have been shoved communism and socialism down their throats from professors for the past however many years are latching on to democratic socialism because they think it's empathetic and compassionate. They can feel like heroes while still sitting on their couches. And so that was popular with Bernie Sanders. Other candidates are seeing, okay, if we're going to get the millennial vote, which is a huge voting bloc, we've got to latch on to this. And so, like you said, we see a lot of Democratic candidates on the left trying to outflank each other in that.
Let me bring Buck in here. I've only got about 20 seconds, Buck. You're surrounded by a large group of very conservative young people. What's their attitude and approach towards socialism?
I think they recognize that the fight that lies ahead is a serious one. The 2020 election is going to be a choice between the America that many of us have known for a long time and a socialist future. They can call it democratic socialism, but it's socialism nonetheless. That's what the 2020 election will be about, and that's what the young people here at CPAC are ready for.
All three of you, I want to thank you for being here tonight on this beautiful Friday night. Appreciate it. And thanks for staying with us on this Hannity special, Socialism Rising. Socialists want to take away your private health insurance and even your gas-powered car. But is that even legal? Pam Bondi and Emily Campagno will be here with answers. And later, President Trump surprised much of the hate Trump media by calling on Sean Hannity during his post-summit press conference. You're going to want to see what happened. Stay tuned.
I was recently diagnosed.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, Socialism Rising. Now, the Democrats are showing no signs of slowing down on their extreme far-left agenda for America's future. For example, just this week, the Democratic House unveiled their Medicare for All bill. Now, on top of the crippling costs, which are so extreme, the authoritarian bill puts key health care decisions in the hands of federal bureaucrats and largely eliminates private insurance. And major 2020 Democratic candidates are already on board. Take a look.
Will these people be able to keep their health insurance plans, their private plans, through their employers if there is a Medicare for All program that you endorse?
What will change in their plans is the color of their card. So instead of having a Blue Cross Blue Shield card, instead of having a United Health Insurance card, they're going to have a Medicare card.
For the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care, and you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company.
And it's not just healthcare companies they want to take out of existence. They also want to ban any vehicle that relies on oil or gasoline for fuel. So that would include cars, trucks, and even airplanes. So it would that even be constitutional for the government to outlaw every gas-powered vehicle? Joining us now with answers are former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who I believe is in Tampa Bay, Florida, along with attorney and Fox News contributor, who's right here by my side in New York City, contributor Emily Campagno. Thank you both for being here. I want to go to the Attorney General first. What would happen to this country, and what are the legal ramifications if all of a sudden the government came forward and they passed this bill miraculously through Congress and the president signed it with some radical socialist and said, you know, all those millions of cars out there, you just can't drive those anymore. They're illegal.
Well, Jason, before it would be found unconstitutional by our Supreme Court, it clearly defies the fundamental property rights set forth in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. You know, we were founded, think about what our forefathers must be thinking now. We were founded on a country of hard work, dedication, and the principles of free market. And they're attempting to undo all of that. And it is not legal.
Emily, again, you're sitting right here with me in New York. As you look at these bills that have been introduced, how does that infringe upon people's rights under the Constitution? How do you read that?
The fact that it infringes upon our right to choose, first of all, and to participate in a thriving economy in that capitalist sense. And the irony here is that the reason that the Democrats are giving for this is because they feel that our rights are being taken away when they argue that the private companies, they're not giving basic health care in equal measures to those that need it, right? But then it belies the reality, which is that it infringes upon our rights. And I think that, you know, increasing state ownership is not the answer for an economic ill. And in cases of a natural monopoly like telecommunications or transportation, it makes more sense, right? That's preventing, you know, a large corporation from using their market share to dominate. But in something like this, when the majority of Americans like their health care plan, to remove that choice and to nationalize it, just like the Attorney General said, it's unconstitutional and also is antithetical to our free market tenets that this country was founded on.
Now, General Bondi, the federal government can't run the VA. I mean, talk to somebody who's a veteran in this country, and it's pretty hard to find somebody who really likes the way the Veterans Administration works. Right. Now the government wants to take it all over, according to these Democratic socialists. What do you think would happen in this country if they tried to take away 170 million people who get their health care insurance through their employer?
Well, it's virtually impossible to do that and make it work. You know, we know that hostile takeovers of our economy don't work. We've seen that in Venezuela, perfect example. But this is going so much further than Obamacare, which of course I challenged in the courts. This is so much further. It's saying that private insurance companies are illegal and cannot operate. Our system would fail. No one would have coverage. No one would be able to obtain proper medical care. It would make Canada look great compared to what we would have here in our country, and it's just not legal.
I remember a conservative at the time, George Will, when he said, boy, you think healthcare is expensive now? Just wait till it's free. And there was a lot of sense in that. Emily, but the dismantling of, it's funny to me. I see these wild-eyed people that think, we got to make every car electric. But then they don't understand where we get electricity, right? If it comes from nuclear energy, it comes from coal. What would happen to this country if we moved towards this new Green Deal that the Democrats want to put in place?
A lot of negative things would happen. And I think part of the issue is the fact that there's no specificity and there's really no answering to the process, right? We saw it there in that interview earlier where Kamala Harris didn't even answer the question of, so you're saying that Americans can't stick with their private health care plan, right? And it was kind of a wordy answer
Right.
instead of just saying, that's exactly what we're saying. And then that begs the question, well, so if we're outlawing that, does that mean we're criminalizing it? Are we regulating it? What are the ramifications? What are the penalties if someone did have a car? What are the penalties for a corporation that relied on trucking to get our soybeans from Iowa to California? So I think the fact that there's such a lack of thought in that entire process, not to mention how it would be paid for, to me as a constituent and as a citizen, where does that deserving lie? Right? I'm the one that's then underserved in that capacity during this entire discussion, which is why it's so unfortunate at this time.
And that's what's so scary about this is that the major contenders for the 2020 election on the Democratic side of the aisle have embraced this wholeheartedly without ever thinking through the economics, the personal ramifications, and the legality of it, as both of you have pointed out. I thank you so much for joining here this evening, and I know Sean will have you back talking more about this issue because it is not going away. Coming up on this Hannity special, Socialism Rising, we'll have Trace Gallagher giving us the latest on the notorious gang MS-13, which is now reportedly targeting off-duty police officers. This is the dangerous world the open borders left just wants us to accept. Stay with us. Despite the ongoing immigration crisis in this country, the latest example of the immigration problem, the notorious Central American gang MS-13, is revealed to be targeting off-duty police officers at their homes. Fox News national correspondent Trace Gallagher joins us from Los Angeles with the latest on this story. Trace?
And Jason, those who cover MS-13 know it's all about street cred, a way of rising in the ranks by targeting the gang's worst enemies or biggest threats. In this case, the New York City police officers who live on Long Island. NYPD has issued an officer safety alert, an internal bulletin saying that MS-13 gang members are planning on carrying out attacks on off-duty police officers near their homes. In fact, the alert reportedly states that gang members are conducting reconnaissance of police officers' private homes, a frightening thought for them and their families. A former FBI agent told CBS 2 New York, quote, "They are going above and beyond what any other gang does. And the scary part is that we already know that they legitimately carry out threats and are extremely violent." The warning goes on to advise the officers to take extra precaution and change up their routines whenever possible. The gang's reign of terror is well documented by a series of brutal and bloody attacks in Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk counties in New York. And authorities note the gang is notorious for murder, drugs, child prostitution, and racketeering. Jason.
Trace, thank you. Some of the worst of the worst. I appreciate that report. Conservatives aren't taking these developments lightly. Speaking at CPAC today, Senator Ted Cruz told National Review editor Rich Lowry that Republicans would have held the House of Representatives had they passed border wall funding when they were in the majority. Take a look.
If we had had that fight and you had seen Elizabeth Warren screaming on the Senate floor to stop it, Bernie Sanders pulling what little hair he has out of his head, in September or October, and it culminated with Republicans standing together, funding and building the wall, I'll tell you right now, Rich, I don't think we would have lost the House of Representatives.
Amen. I believe that. Joining me now with reaction, former Obama administration head of U.S. Border Patrol, Mark Morgan, and Fox News contributor and former acting ICE director, Tom Homan. Thank you both, gentlemen, for your service to this nation, putting your lives on the line to help protect Americans. And I know you represent a lot of people out there that do the same day in and day out. Democrats this week, Tom, they voted against the idea that if an illegal alien goes to purchase a gun, that there should be some notification of ICE. What does that do to the people who serve in ICE now and who do the same job that you've done in the past?
Well, it shows total disrespect and disregard for the health and the safety of ICE officers. I mean, these men and women put their lives on the line every day to defend their country, and they want ICE to turn, like, an illegal alien possession of a firearm is a felony. So they want to forgive an illegal alien that commits a felony, but they want to attack this. They want to attack the Second Amendment rights of Americans. It's just, you know what? They're so far to the left. Every day, I'm not surprised by what I hear about the Democrats are doing. It's a total disrespect for men and women, many who lost their lives serving this country.
Mark, when Barack Obama was president, there were 80,000 times that there was somebody here illegal. They got caught committing a crime. They were convicted of that crime, and instead of deporting them, they released them back out of the United States of America. What does that do to people that are serving in the Border Patrol when you have a convicted person released back out onto the streets?
Well, Jason, it's absolutely demoralizing, right? Just like Tom said, he's absolutely right. 128 Border Patrol agents have lost their lives defending the border, only to watch something like that, a scenario like that happen again and again. And before I was with the Border Patrol, I served in the FBI, and I led an MS-13 gang task force. MS-13 is the most violent, prolific, transnational gang this country has ever seen. They're from California all the way to New York and just about every major metropolitan city in between. And these individuals, they're not coming in through Canada, right? They're coming in through the poor southwest border. They're coming here, they get deported, and they're coming back again and again and again. And the Democrats, they say it's okay.
Mark, I want to stay with you for a second. Nancy Pelosi went to the border recently and said there isn't a problem. Is there a problem at the border?
Yeah, it's right. It's a joke. How do you even have a legitimate, honest conversation when somebody, regardless of the monumental facts that we can provide, just says it's manufactured, it's made up? Talk to the thousands of angel families, right? Tell them that it's made up. Talk to a police officer that was just killed by the illegal immigrant. Talk to their families, see if this is manufactured or it's not a crisis. It's pathetic and it's wrong, and they're misleading and they're lying to the American people, Jason. Absolutely.
Tom, you've served a career, decades, serving our nation, trying to protect our borders. What's really going on down there?
We're being invaded. Look, all you got to do is watch the media, what's going on the southern border. Look, let's just look at a few facts. The seizure of opioids by the Border Patrol and fentanyl is up 184%. That has killed 72,000 people this past year in the United States. That is a national emergency. And look at the rest of MS-13 members that we just discussed is up 170%. 18th Street gang members is up 140%. There is a crisis occurring on that border. And they say there's no national emergency. It's just ridiculous.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for the service to this nation. Next on Hannity's special, Socialism Rising, President Trump called on Sean Hannity at his Vietnam press conference. We'll play the tape next. Stay with us.